This is the Dallas Prospect Live with DDP. Every legend was once a prospect. The Dallas Prospect is funded by viewers like you through Patreon and PayPal. To support the show, visit patreon.com/the Dallas Prospect or become a member by clicking the join button. Now let the show begin.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Derek Kirby, and this is the Dallas Prospect. Now, we've got some interesting news here today. Not only that, we have a Luka just gem to discuss here. Now, in this case, we're just going to dive into the nitty-gritty because I think really the main thing people are talking about right now is Luka, and I want to shine a proper light and appreciation on this Olympic debut because holy crap was Luka Doncic in his bag. I guess last night in this case, like middle of the night here, basically an inverse of what some international fans are used to watching the NBA here. Now we're the ones experiencing that. Luka and Slovenia making their first Olympic appearance in basketball matched up with Argentina, which is probably like one of the 3 or 4 best like basketball teams, I would say, in this regard globally. And this was no small task to have to take them on. Now, yes, you're led by a 22-year-old superstar, but Slovenia is a population of what, like 5 million? Maybe I should have looked that up, but I didn't think I'd be trying to pull that fact out of my catalog today. So correct me in the comments on that. But Slovenia is a very small population, and so to take on a power, in this case like Argentina, is no easy task. Thankfully, when you got Luka Doncic, 2 million, holy crap, 2 million. So I overshot it. Wow, I thought if anything, I slightly undersold that. When you got Luka Doncic, though, it is a different ball game, as Luka making his Olympic debut had himself an absolute gem. 48 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. He was a plus 34 in the game. Keep in mind, the quarters here are shorter than NBA quarters. So Luka, absurdly efficient in this regard. I mean, not only that, like the 3 blocks as well. That's one of those things where you're just like, bro, okay. Like absolutely controlling the game in this regard. As Bobby Carella points out on Twitter, Slovenia is now 14-0 in major competitions with Luka Doncic in jersey. So that is very, very beneficial as well. Luka Doncic does not miss, it seems like, when he's sporting the home country jersey. And that's how it should be. Like, that is how it should be. Like, you look conversely at what's happening with Team USA, and we kind of talked about this even before the Olympics started. It's kind of just a hodgepodge of names, noteworthy names for the most part, but still guys that aren't like a cohesive team, don't really play a lot together, and defined roles aren't necessarily there. And they look like it. This team has lost like 3 out of 4 games, got beat by France the other day. I'm not here to talk about all that. I'm just here to point out the contrast when you actually have a cohesive team that has chemistry, works together, and kind of understands their roles in this regard. So Luka, absolutely balling out here for Slovenia. Not only do they win the game over Argentina, they are routing them for a good part of it. Like they're up, like 25 at one point. I think they end up winning by 18. Just absurdly good. Luka had 31 points at the half as well. He ends up 18 of 29 from the field, 6 of 14 from 3, 6 of 7 at the foul line. So hey, even there is pretty clear. Just an absolute gem. Now, I think he ended up 7 points shy of the Olympic record for a single game, but even still, it's an incredible performance here. This is I want to fact check this, but I saw someone on Twitter saying this looks like a Matt Williams citing that Luka's the first player ever with 45-point game in the Olympics and NBA in the same year. I feel like, is that foreign players? Or is that all together? Because that feels like an incredible stat that almost sounds too good to be true. But if not, it's an incredible stat all the same. So we'll throw that one out there tentatively and be ready to withdraw it with a correction if need be. So in this game, and here's the clarification as well, like I said on Argentina, they are ranked as the 4th best country in the world according to FIBA for basketball. So this is a big win. This is a major statement here. And you know what? Bobby Carella also pointed out they are in, a win against Japan or in the following game against Spain would all but guarantee Slovenia advancement out of their group and into the medal round. That sounds very doable considering how handily you just took down Argentina. It's very, very impressive. And you know what? All the power and love to Luka and Slovenia for doing this. Just like the Slovenian fans and international fans, fans of Real Madrid who watched Luka play in Dallas, cheer for him, and by extension, cheer for Dallas. We're doing the same here because I know a ton of people who stayed up to watch Luka play in this game, who honestly at this point care more about Slovenia and their success than Team USA, because I think we're all kind of like, yeah, we've won the Olympics a lot, and it's kind of cyclical in that regard where they take it for granted, lesser talent reappears, and this year's kind of a different thing anyway with how hot on the heels of the NBA season it was. But they take it for granted, eventually get humbled, and then by the next Olympics or something like that, you get more of the stars. I don't care about all that. I am more invested in this storyline over here with Luka and with Slovenia. I want to see how far they are able to go in that regard. As VIP Me Europe points out, Luka's efficiency was incredible. You're saying 31 minutes is how much he played? That's phenomenal. Now, I know that they rested him They didn't play him the final 5 minutes of a blowout. Otherwise, he could have really gone after that single game record. I'm actually glad that they didn't because, for people here and how the media wants to try and malign Luka and say that he's just about stat padding. First of all, how insanely stupid is someone to say that Luka is stat padding with what he does with the Mavericks? That's so absurd, and it's clearly someone who doesn't want to watch basketball and just wants to have a hot take or try and shape a narrative around a guy that they don't like as much for whatever reason. But Luka, you look at how the Slovenian team rallies around him, how they celebrate him, whether it was when they qualified and they carried him off the court, whether it was the celebration in the locker room, which was so genuine and really cool to see, or, how it's just they're interacting on the court here. Like, these guys understand their roles and they perform them well. If anything, it should be a message to the Mavericks' new front office. Hey, maybe we need to reassess how we approach this roster building thing, because look what this guy is able to do when you give him pieces that actually fit together, and don't just say, hey, go be the best player in the world for all 48 minutes in a 7-game series. And then if you get past that round, great. Now you got to keep doing it forever. Like, you can't win ultimately doing that. I think in this regard, yes, Luka goes for the absurd 48 points in that precedent. Like, it was a big scoring night for Luka, but it's not a thing where he wants to go out there and have to drop 40, 50 points a night. I think he would rather, and the 5 assists doesn't really illustrate it here, but I think he would rather get the team involved and actually be the kind of facilitator and the floor general, kind of like Kidd to an extent, although he has much more of a scoring knack and prowess than Jason Kidd ever had. So doing something like that is more akin to what he wants to do. Putting everything on him and saying, yo, you got to go drop 46 and dish out 13 assists, and in an elimination game on the road, your teammates are going to give you nothing, and you're just going to have to find a way to work with that. Like, that's not practical. That's not pragmatic. So we'll see what Dallas is going to take away from this, but I really hope they're looking at this objectively and saying, like, maybe if nothing else, this illustrates the kind of supporting cast we need to get him, whether it's specific players. I see a lot of mentions of Toby there in the comments, whether it's specific players or whether it's, something else in that regard, like an archetype of a player. We'll see. I wouldn't mind at this point seeing a Goran Dragic move from Dallas. I think that would be another very good move. Not just one that he would appreciate. I think it's one that would help the team as well. You just have to figure out what they're going to do, because the latest reports from Dallas is arguably one of, if not the top priority for Dallas right now, is re-signing Tim Hardaway Jr. That actually worries me just a little bit because while I like Timmy, I also understand the kind of faults to his game, and I look at it someone like, again, flashing back to like the U.S. versus France the other day, Evan Fournier is not going to command as much money, but can give you a lot of what you would get in that regard. Now, I know with Boston, it wasn't necessarily as great for Fournier, but I'd like to see Dallas be a little bit wiser with this money rather than say, hey, let's go extend Tim Hardaway and then try to do a sign-and trade because we know we've kind of tied our hands with what moves we can do moving forward. I don't want Dallas to get into that situation because if you're going to get in a situation where you're trying to sell me on the idea of, hey, we re-signed Tim Hardaway Jr. and we tried a sign-in trade. Oh, look at that. It didn't work. And we had our hat in the rings for these other guys, whether it be Kyle Lowry or whoever. Oh, we tried for all these things and oh, that didn't work out. Darn. Well, you know, we were active and we took our shot. Like, no, you can't get by with we made our effort and we took our shot. You got to actually deliver at this point. This is way too crucial of an offseason. But with that being the case, I would say Dallas, they're going to have to probably be aggressive and they're going to have to look at more than just bringing in Hardaway. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know. I'm concerned with how high the reports seem to be suggesting that they're putting stock in their top move being Hardaway, like the first key in what they're doing. I don't like that. I'd rather see them throw a bunch of money at Kyle Lowry, but at the same time, Kyle Lowry is going to command a big contract. Not a multi-year contract, just a lot per year, like a 2 or 3 year deal, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 27 million is what I'm understanding of that. That's going to make you have to do some gymnastics as far as your salary cap is concerned, but it is doable. Now, depending on how you shape things, whether it's moving out then Cauley-Stein, Hardaway, obviously if that's the case, it'd have to be part of the sign-and trade. Powell, things like that. Whether you do something like that and then say, okay, let's try a Raptors reunion and give me Lowry and DeRozan. That would be interesting, but at the same time, I think that's so slim of opportunity and likelihood, it's not even worth really delving that far into. So I'm hoping that Dallas is watching this game here with Luka just absolutely balling out. You see the best of all worlds here, where you see him in an environment where even though he puts up big numbers, he doesn't have to do everything. Like, he doesn't have to do everything because his team is in control of the game. They're putting a team that has a lot more clout and history around them on notice. And, you know, the parts just fit together. The chemistry is good. I think Dallas has been kind of in love with this idea of developing its own guys and knowing like, oh, well, we're going to cultivate continuity. That's great, but you're not being practical and pragmatic about the caps and ceilings some of these guys have. Dorian Finney-Smith has been a phenomenal project for Dallas, and he has outperformed any expectation when he was an undrafted free agent out of Florida. That said, it doesn't necessarily fit to say like, hey, he's a great piece to have in the contract's phenomenal. But if your assumption is that he's going to keep taking steps forward, similar with like the assumption of Maxi Kleber, I would say the same thing. If your assumption is he's going to keep taking steps forward, I think that you're kind of lying to yourself. You know, I think you got guys there who are great players, great fits, nice players, but they're not the kind of guys, they're the guys that put you over the top. They're not the guys who you have to have on your team and be that center core. Like, you got your superstars at the top. You know, they hoped Porzingis would be that, and obviously Luka is that. They have that, and then you kind of need that middle ground, and then you have the guys that put you over the top, which is to say the guys who, role players who don't have to produce at a super high level, but can be very impactful, whether it's in a certain game or a certain series, and make a difference. Where it might be a guy that you didn't go into the series saying, oh, well, I was having to put all of my faith in this guy playing way over his head for an entire 7-game series. I think Dallas does that, and I don't think it's fair to, honestly, the team even. Like, it's great that Maxi and Dorian have been able to have the success that they've had and to play as they have. But to assume that they're going to keep ascending, I think, is kind of the biggest lie that Dallas has been selling itself on in that regard. I also speaking of the Olympics, I also really like what we've seen in stretches from Josh Green with Australia. And I would very much like to see him get similar opportunities for usage in this upcoming season. Rick didn't. You saw flashes of Rick using him, and you saw how he could impact a game. I think he had one against Miami earlier this year where you really got to see him flex that. But I think he can bring a lot to this team moving forward as well. So we'll see whatever they end up doing. But it has been really remarkable to see just how much better and looser things are as Luka is playing with Slovenia. The atmosphere to me, just at my impression, feels looser, feels more relaxed. It doesn't feel like he's having to carry as much weight on it because Luka, when Luka is smiling and when he's playing carefree, it almost sounds contradictory to say. When he's smiling and he's playing carefree, the dude's a stone cold killer. Like, absolutely. But you see other times with like all the talk of like his immaturity people would talk about, like his frustration, whether it was the technical fouls or whatever. I think that's a culmination, not just of not feeling like he's getting respect from NBA referees, like relative to other guys, but I think it's a culminating effect of just how much pressure is on him night in, night out in terms of scoring and distributing and feeling like he's having to do everything. I think that weighs a little bit. Now, he is built different in the sense that he is largely able to uphold that and to live up to it. But you don't want to keep that kind of weight on him permanently because even guys in the past who talked about like, oh, I can do this. Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City was a great example. Said he was Oklahoma City for life. He would never leave the team. He was there until the fans didn't want him anymore, and that he would carry that torch and that banner. And then eventually, you saw him hit that wall where he was just like, I feel like I'm being asked to do a little too much, a little bit too constantly. And it's great that, he had a co-star in Russell Westbrook who himself would win MVP the year after Durant left. That's great. But you see how eventually, even the most, and it's funny to say this now because people don't think of Durant as loyal, but like you see in that way how it can wear on a guy over time. I think KD was genuinely loyal back then, and I think he did mean when he said those things. I think it eroded over time, and there were just times where, like in the years leading up to him actually leaving, you kind of saw the fissures a little bit, and whether it was his interactions with the press or whatever. I don't want to see that happen to Luka. And I know people have been talking and speculating on the possibility of Luka leaving Dallas literally since like his rookie year, which I've always said I think is a little bit absurd. I understand he's a winner who wants to win, and he's not going to be satisfied with first-round exits. Nor should he be. Nor should the Mavericks as a franchise be. And I think that's why they finally were forced to make these moves, moving on from Donnie Nelson. And whether Rick resigned or was kind of nudged in that direction, I don't know. But regardless, I think fresh perspective was needed, and that's what they're doing. Now, I'm hoping that fresh perspective means fresh vision, new vision for how best to build and construct a roster around Luka. Because as you see here, you can get a whole hell of a lot out of Luka, more than they are certainly getting out of him, and more dynamic where it's not just the, hey, he's got to go out and he's got to be able to drop 40 and out-duel cyborg Kawhi Leonard in the first round when Kawhi Leonard is just obscenely efficient in this series. He's got to out-duel Kawhi Leonard, and he'll get some help for a few games there. The 3 Maverick wins, he got great help. And the one that they lost it in Game 6, he had the help there too, and Dallas just faded in that regard. And, a lot of that tied back to Carlisle's questionable timeout decision. But you want to see them change their approach and understand that, the way we were building the roster, we kind of had one vision and an idea of what worked best around Luka. But now you see this, him playing against Argentina for Slovenia. Salute to our new subscriber. A population of 2 million, a country with 2 million people, just took a powerhouse in the basketball world in Argentina and blew their ass out in the first game of the Olympics. Like, That's a statement. And you saw Luka not just scoring, but you saw the other ways in which he was able to kind of contribute and control the game, and how in other ways it wasn't all on him. I think Dallas needs to reassess based on what they're watching here, as Luka hopefully leads them to medal. I don't know what the medal will be, but I feel like in many regards, the doors are wide open for whoever wants to go grab. I was going to say the brass ring, but we're literally talking about the gold medal instead. Grab the gold medal for this Olympics, because Team USA is not, they're a paper tiger. They are not the Team USA that people associate, the last 20 years with, 30 years, whatever, since the Dream Team. Like I said, Team USA kind of goes through these cycles where they get a little complacent, so they stop being able to draw the biggest, best names. And even when they are drawing some of the best names, like they got Damian Lillard there, they're not playing up to their par, and they're not playing as a cohesive unit. They're not playing as a team. They're not playing with clearly defined roles. It's kind of just like, hey, to us, it's like pickup basketball with some of these other great talents. Sometimes that's enough, but eventually you're going to get humbled, and you're going to have to come back hungrier the next time around in the Olympics. I think this is one of those Olympic years, and as a result, this is a wide open race for who can get the gold medal this year. I would love it for Slovenia to medal. I don't know what that's going to be, but man, I don't like betting against Luka on many things, if anything. So we'll see what they're able to do with that. Let's see here. They better not treat him like Dirk, talking about the roster composition around Dirk. I agree. And, aside from 2011, when they finally seemed to strike that balance, they really wasted a lot of great years from Dirk. And that's saying something, that you can have a guy that's, top 6 all-time scorer, a guy that is probably top 20 all-time player, one of the greatest, most revolutionary power forwards in NBA history, MVP, finals MVP and champion. You're going to have a guy do all of that, and you're looking at your front office saying, like, aside from maybe 1 or 2 years, I don't know that you really built a competent roster around him. Like, the 12 straight seasons of 50-plus wins, that was a testament to Dirk and Jet. Like, I'm not saying, like, it literally was just all Dirk scoring every point every night, but, like, that was a testament to Dirk and his prime and what he was able to bring out of that team. He made them contenders. And Luka, salute to our new subscriber. Hey, shout out, by the way. Thank you, Bobby. Shout out, by the way. I believe we are 1 subscriber away from 4,700. So salute to whoever wants to claim that distinction there. Let's see. Well, actually, I'm showing it now, but no, there it goes. Yeah, one away from that distinction, it looks like on my end. So whoever wants to claim that distinction, by all means, the floor is open. The floor is yours. But yeah, you want Dallas to handle things better, because they blew things up after the title, and they never really had a crystal clear idea of what to build around Dirk again. They kind of just became a hodgepodge of what they call fallen angels, which are guys that might have been stars before or borderline stars, but kind of fell off and their reputation was down, and they kind of picked them up and rebuilt them a little bit, rehabbed their image just a little bit. But, like, you were never going to replicate the 2011 run again doing that. And so the final 8-9 years of Dirk's career were just utterly wasted. And that's a damn shame. So I'm hoping Dallas now, they've, to an extent, wasted 3 years with Luka. Now, I don't want to say 3 years. I'll say 2 years. I know he's third-year player. I'm just saying I think they underestimated what they had in him as a rookie. And I think by the All-Star break his rookie year, they kind of understood, okay, it's not going to work with Dennis Smith. Salute, Lindy. It's not going to work with Dennis Smith as his co-star long-term. And we have to figure out a way to capitalize on rebuilding the roster around him. He's not just a part. He is the part. Salute, Marco. He is the part. And they've changed tactics. You saw how even this past offseason, they changed it again, where they were moving on from, did I, in correcting myself, say they were mooing? Salute, Leo First Dawn. What up? Where they were reassessing the roster. They moved on from Seth Curry, and they said, we want a bunch of long, lanky 3-and-D guys. And so I think Josh Green, salute Joel, our new subscriber. I think Josh Green can absolutely fit that bill for Dallas of a quality piece. I still like the potential of a guy like Tyrell Terry, but I also know, they put a lot of stock in Josh Richardson, and he's going to opt into his $11 million contract player option. And that's going to be another guy you really got to find a way to move on from if you're going to be super aggressive this offseason, because he had such a bad year. He's going to want to get paid at least that and try to rebuild his image in a new contract year. You can't hitch your horse to that wagon. You have to find a way to move on from that. So they've had 2 years to figure it out with Luka. They almost went back to the drawing board in some extent this past offseason, and now they're like, ooh, that didn't work. Salute 2214 Junebug, ya dig? I dig. In that regard, you don't want to say like, hey man, we got 1 year further down the road, kind of went back to the drawing board, didn't really work out, and now we're in this awkward situation where the two biggest moves we made, the KP, not trade, but the contract, the extension, and the subsequent Curry for Richardson deal. These are our two biggest moves we've made, and we're in a situation now where neither, at least for now, is panning out. I think K-Wiz, I think it is from what I've read from guys like Mark Stein and all of that, it's a pretty safe assumption he's going to opt in, Josh Richardson is, to his $11 million player option, I believe, this year. And as a result, Dallas is going to have to figure out. Now, in some regards, as far as like sign-in trades go, like those possibilities, which we've heard they are interested in, that does open it up. That opens up a little bit more how you can play around with money and parts that you're willing to, part with. But we'll see. KP, I'm still willing to bet not only my hope that with a new front office and regime and coach and all that, but a full healthy offseason, I'm willing to give him this year. Like, if it's just completely tanking by All-Star break and we have just figured out nothing, well, he's pennies on the dollar anyway, and they're kind of stuck. But in that regard, I'd like to say, KP, you got this year. We'll see if we can put something together. But if you get another year, 3 seasons of KP down the road, and you've still got 2 full years left on his contract, 1, with 2 years versus 3, it's more movable. 2, I think you're kind of aware at that point whether or not you can make it work. And for how much money his contract pays him per year, like $30 million, then I think you just kind of have to be flexible to that. You have to understand, like, yeah, okay, this on paper made sense why we had to try it. It's not working. We need to realize that and move on. Rather than cling to the ship and say, like, even if it's going under, damn it, we're hanging on. We're not giving up until the final moment. Well, as the ship is going down and you're sinking, you're probably going to wish, like, in hindsight, we probably should have been a little bit more willing to move on after year 3. So we'll see. Let's see. No contract is untradeable. I agree, because now you got the Lakers talking about acquiring the Russell Westbrook contract. Remember when Oklahoma City signed Russell Westbrook to that contract? When they got Paul George, to re-sign in Oklahoma City. He stayed 1 year before forcing his trade to LA. Westbrook was like, oh, well, that's an untradeable contract. Salute to Rogers, our new subscriber. Like, oh, that's an untradeable contract. And then the Rockets traded for him, John Wall. And so Russell got first traded to Houston for Chris Paul. Then the Rockets traded with the Wizards, Westbrook to Washington. And now you got Westbrook being linked to the Lakers in a trade. And it's just like, dude, for a trade or for a contract that was said to be untradeable, that dude's gotten traded like 3 or 4 times now. At some point, we have to acknowledge no contract is untradeable. It gets more difficult, that's fair to say, but it's not untradeable. Not untradeable. So I think in this situation, the best thing Dallas can do is look to be versatile and dynamic. Like, be opportunistic as far as if something comes along that makes sense, go for it. Be aggressive. Don't be afraid to move on from it. But at the same time, I understand not wanting to take back peanuts on the dollar. Peanuts on the dollar? Get it together, DDP. You're better than that. Pennies on the dollar. Bag of peanuts. However, whatever analogy you want, whatever metaphor you want here to use. You don't want to do that. And as my last stream, I talked with Saad Yousuf of The Athletic, as he talked about, KP's value is so low right now. Yeah, even if you could move on from the trade, you open up the cap space, and that's great. But he's probably better than what you've gotten out of him so far. So you at least want to give this new regime a chance. And two, if he plays up to the value to actually raise his trade value to where he is a commodity, well, then you don't want to trade him anyway because he's playing up to what you expected. Things to consider, things to ponder. But again, that's neither here nor there. So why are we there? I don't know. Sometimes I just start talking, my mouth runs, and we go through the wilderness together. Let's see here. Bradley Beal would be perfect with Luka. Yeah, Bradley Beal is going to be linked to a lot of different teams. We hear a lot of the same names come up. We hear like the Lakers. We hear the Heat come up a lot. There were a couple other ones listed with him. Dallas not among them. I think that's a pipe dream, honestly, for Beal. He's a great player. I would love having him on this team with Luka. But it's also one of those guys that I think the cost, it's hard to work with Washington. The Wizards are not an easy front office to work with from what I've read and kind of seen in recent years. And it's tough to get a reasonable return, like what you're having to give up in exchange for Beal. And I don't think Dallas has the assets to make that work unless you're talking a multi-team trade, in which case all bets are off. So with that being the case, Kawhi Leonard's also believed now by Woj to be headed back after all. We heard some talk that hey, it's not a foregone conclusion that Kawhi stays with the Clippers. And, he might have even regretted not choosing the Lakers instead. All of that we were hearing, but then we hear, yeah, but he's expected to stay with the Clippers. And it doesn't matter that Dallas wants to be aggressive and chase that pipe dream. It doesn't matter about the debates about whether or not what if he has to miss a whole year with the partial ACL tear he's recovering from after surgery? Well, first of all, if that was on the table, I would still tell you, did you forget what he did against us in the first round the last 2 years? How about you pair him with Luka and tell me how well that's going to work out? Yeah, you might have to wait a year. You don't want to, but at the same time, any move you make for him, you're probably going to be having to wheel and deal anyway to move on from some of these other contracts. So you can still build around it anyway, and it's not the end of the world if it's 1 year. Again, doesn't even matter at this point, but Dallas is going to have to make some assessments on what they want to do. I'm still all in on the Lowry. I'm still interested in the DeRozan possibility, but I think Lowry is probably the best option, although it's a very competitive market for him as well. So we're going to hear any number of free agents linked to Dallas. That's just the reality between now and then because Dallas has the cap space. We're going to hear any number of free agents linked to Dallas, at least in terms of a place of interest or a place believed to be a potential landing place. You got to kind of know when to cut through the filter and look to distinguish whether or not the team is able to really get their hat in the ring, if you will. So I don't know. K-Wiz, you're going to have to tell Luka we're going to suck for another year. Again, it's irrelevant anyway because Kawhi's not leaving, so you don't even have to tell him. Even in the hypothetical, you don't have to tell him. But we'll see. And it's not even known for sure if it would be a whole year that he misses. Again, moot point. It's a moo point, like a cow says. Doesn't matter. Just moo. Nothing. But in this regard, I think Dallas needs to look at some smart signings. One of them that interests me a lot and is another guy, as I said, who's been kind of linked to the team. Richaun Holmes interests me a lot. I think he would be a phenomenal fit with Dallas. Now the question, and I've seen this talked about too. I don't know why I went as high on that inflection as I did. Sorry if I clipped the mic. The question is, his fit with Luka and the rest of this roster looks really good. What about his fit with KP? That's where it gets a little bit muddier, I think. I think with KP and Richaun Holmes as your front court, I think there's a lot to be desired there. It doesn't mean it can't be a quality front court, but I don't know that it's what you need to get completely over the top. So we'll see what Dallas ends up doing. Salute to Luka and to Slovenia for putting on an absolute clinic in their first Olympic basketball game, beating Argentina by, I believe, 18 points. And really making a statement in that regard. I hope Dallas is watching. So since you're taking Lowry, Dallas prospect, why not Goran Dragic? I said earlier I would be very interested in a Goran Dragic Luka reunion in Dallas. I think that would be a very good signing. And to be clear, while I'm high on Lowry, I don't think it's the most likely scenario. I just don't. I think you can get a quality pickup and maybe even a pseudo big fish, but I don't think you're going to go get premier names out there necessarily. And you can go and be competitive in the market, and if somehow you're able to, whether it's through Nico Harrison or whatever, actually secure one of those guys, then fantastic. If you're not able to, Goran Dragic is a damn good fallback in that regard, I think. I still do think that is a good fallback. And a guy that, in hindsight, and I own this. I own this, let the record show. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. When Dallas and Miami had the trade that fell through 2 seasons ago, and it was believed that Dallas was going to be getting Goran Dragic in the deal, I, at the time, said that it didn't move the needle much for me. I looked at Goran's age. I looked at the last 2 seasons of how many games he had played and stuff like that and what his numbers looked like. And I just kind of thought, like, I don't know that it's the move this team really needs. Obviously, he proved me wrong because him and Miami made that run in the bubble to the finals, and he was sensational for them. That series goes 6. You can argue that it would have been a different series had Miami not been the walking wounded by the end, including Dragic, who missed several games, I think, with, I want to say, a calf injury, a calf strain. So, yeah, or maybe it was Achilles. But very, very happy and very willing to admit I was wrong in that regard, and that we would have been better off had we actually acquired Dragic. So, am I still open to the idea of adding him? Sure, absolutely. But I think Dallas needs to be aggressive, and it's not just about quality. Like, this is kind of the messed up thing here, right? Because of Dallas's sordid track record with not being able to lure big fish, I think you almost need a perception breaker. By which I mean, go get a big fish. And no, DeAndre Jordan in 2015 does not count. Sorry, 2015 was when he snubbed us. 2018 does not count. I'm talking about getting someone who can come in here and, like, be noteworthy that, whoa, okay, Dallas signed, let's say it's Kyle Lowry. Like, whoa, okay, Dallas got Kyle Lowry. They're serious, and maybe things are changing. Maybe this is an indication of guys who are ready to come play with Luka, and how this is not like all those years where Dallas's name was always out there, but no one would come play with him, because by the time Dallas finally got serious about that model, you're talking 34-year-old Dirk with a blown-up championship roster with really none of its key parts left. That was so hard to sell to free agents year after year after year after year after year, and Mark just kept doing it. The Mavericks kept doing it, and it was painful, and it wasn't fair to Dirk. It wasn't fair at all. So I'm hoping that they can make a splash signing. Doesn't mean it has to be the biggest fish, but be a quality signing. The kind of thing where it's a guy that a lot of teams want, and they see him choose Dallas and choose Luka, and that breaks through and changes that image going forward. Because I think while you're a better team with Dragic, let's say the moves are Dragic and Rashawn Holmes, you're a better team. You're a better team than you were last year, I think. But does that change that perception and make it so that moving forward, you're more likely to bring in big fish? I don't know. It kind of goes at least one more year down the road of speculation. Like, will Dallas finally be able to reverse this narrative? I don't know. We're 2 full seasons, 3 full NBA seasons through Luka as a known quantity in the NBA. You can't count his rookie year because no one was going to be like, I'm signing with Dallas because look at the rookie they just drafted. No one would say that. But after his rookie year, and Dallas didn't have the full cap flexibility, and they weren't willing to make the moves that they needed to open it up. But the idea of, hey, we've seen his rookie year. We know he's the rookie of the year. We saw what playing with this guy would look like. 2 full years, they've not been able to do anything with that and bring guys in here to be like serious bit contenders for some of these names. Now, they would tell us, hey, man, we only really got the mid-level exception open. We want to cultivate continuity and we want to grow as a core. That's great. But you're also you're also narrowing your focus. You're expecting that like what you've cultivated and what you have built is like a young team that can ultimately grow into contenders. This is not like a young core like a Golden State that's going to grow into contenders. That's not what you have. I'm not saying it's bad to like take the draft seriously and try to grow organically through the draft. You want to do that. But at the same time, you have to be objective about what you've done in the recent years. Dennis Smith Jr., that draft, they were forced to be serious about the draft because they were stuck in perennial lottery. They had to. And then, even then, they didn't necessarily make the best choice. Then Luka was, thanks to their scouting, like a can't miss, and they made sure they didn't, thankfully, even when they got a bad break with regard to the lottery drawing. They made sure that they were able to move back from 5 to 3 with a trade with Atlanta and get them. Kudos. But there were so many years in there where we abused and neglected the hell out of the draft. So to then act like, yeah, man, but have you seen what we did with that unsigned free agent? Dorian Finney-Smith is actually developing, and you couldn't say this until 2 years ago was the first time you could kind of say it. Last year, you could certainly fairly say it. Look what this 29-year-old we signed out of Florida. Look what he's built into, And they were telling you this shit 3 years ago. It's like, I like him. I like what Dorian Finney-Smith brings. I would prefer to find a way to keep him. But I'm not banking on a roster full of guys like that that we bring up, that we develop, and saying, like, this is a team that's going to go win a championship. I think that's very, very short-sighted. What am I talking about? No good connection. I don't know if that's a conversation in the chat or if I'm dropping frame rates. It looks like I'm good. Anyway, I don't know. But I think Dallas needs to be objective in its evaluation of its team, its roster. And, Luka, if nothing else, is showing you he can get a whole lot out of guys if they work within certain, within designated roles, and if they have that chemistry and everything built up. So we'll see what happens here. We'll talk more free agency as things get even closer yet. We're getting damn close to it, and it's going to be exciting. One thing I do want to call out here. So as you guys know, I've been trying to break into sports journalism. I've been trying to pivot into a career in that, where that is my job, my day job, and I get to write about the Mavericks and cover the Mavericks extensively. In the past, I've written for publications like Clutch Points, Dallas Sports Fanatic. I've had probably a couple dozen articles picked up and everything by Bleacher Report. Like, I've put in the work in covering the Mavericks and even the Cowboys. I've been able to get, some reasonable exposure. I'm taking that next step now. Everything here is remaining the same, but I'm taking the next step because with graduation on the horizon in December, I need to now focus on basically what we call gathering clips, which is to say portfolio pieces. So I'm going to be moving forward writing for probably a couple different publications here as well. This is a paid writing gig that I'll be taking on. Still going to keep writing for the Dallas Prospect, still going to keep doing these videos and everything, but I'm also going to be writing for Fansided, which is, if you've heard of their website for the Mavericks blog before, it is the Smoking Cuban, play on words for Mark Cuban. I'll be writing for them, and I am still, not to put I used this phrase earlier, so it sounds like I'm just out of ideas of originality, but not to put the cart before the horse, but I am also in talks with Mavs Moneyball, which, if you want to talk about a lot of great sports journalists in the Dallas market, specifically who cover the Mavericks, a lot of them have come through Mavs Moneyball, and so that's a really, really good stepping stone for me. I'm still discussing with them, but there's definite mutual interest, so we'll see what happens with that. And who knows, there might be a wild card in there as well, but the idea, I'm going to be writing for them, covering the team, and I'm basically going to be collecting clips and portfolio pieces so that whether it's I can just build up Dallas Prospect, eventually pivot into full on that, where I try to make Dallas Prospect the whole, day job, career, everything. Whether it's that or whether it's me being able to leverage that to write for, as a staff writer, someone's Mavericks writer or reporter, an actual beat writer around the team at the press conferences, in the locker room, all that. Whether I do that now or I do that in December is irrelevant. The point is that it's kind of like the dues you got to pay early on, and you got to get kind of that connectivity and get those clips, get that exposure. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be working basically. It's funny to say this because I know if you guys have been here a minute, you know how much work I put in, how hard I've worked these past couple of years, really since the start of Dallas Prospect, these last 4 or 5 years, how hard I've worked. And now I'm at the point where I'm not going to call it a finish line because I don't view it as a finish line, but I can see the line at which point I can go quote unquote pro as a sports journalist here, getting to cover and talk about the Mavericks, which I love to do. I can see that in sight, and now I just have to put in the work to get from where I am now to get there. And I think it's doable. So if you guys, I'll post them in the community tab too. Anytime I write an article, I'll drop the link and all that. But if you guys haven't read my stuff before, please, by all means, check it out. Check it out at thedallasprospect.com. Check it out. It's been a while since I wrote for Clutch Points or Clutch Points or Dallas Sports Fanatics, so don't worry about that. But I'll drop the new links for the Smoking Cuban, and if I end up writing for someone else as well, then I'll drop those links. And by all means, please check them out. I'll be sure to do video adaptations where we discuss those topics as well. But I'm going to try and bring all my own original reporting to basically to the forefront to try and stand out. So that about does it for the time I got here. I actually managed to do more on this recording than I thought I was going to get to. I expected I was only going to get about a half hour, and we've been going about 47 minutes, so that's pretty cool. Oh, someone there in the comments who remembers my long hair. It's been a minute. The long hair's been gone for a minute, but I did. If you looked at like a thumbnail of me from the middle of every video I've done over 5 years, the transformation is probably striking. Whether it's the change in beard length, hair length, whether it's the drastic reduction in weight or whatever, it's been quite a ride through 5 years. And you guys, salute to those of you who have been here with me from the beginning. It is greatly appreciated. I said it last night, kind of reflecting back on all this as I'm now in this position to be able to try and chase after something that's a dream for me. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And those of you who have been here with me for years, ride or die, I have the deepest gratitude to you for helping me grow and get to talk Mavericks, which is all I've ever really wanted to do. Salute to Omar. Is that Omar or is that Seymour? The font's kind of small on here. But salute to the new subscriber all the same. Freedom Roar, you look the best I've seen you so far. Thank you. Thank you very much. But yes, so that's going to wrap up my time, guys. I will be back probably in a couple days here with some more content. I'm going to get to work on some new articles that now I have incentive to write. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't already, drop a like, leave a comment below. Join all of these beautiful new subscribers in subscribing to the Dallas Prospect. And until next time, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Shout out to Slovenia and Luka. Go get that gold, son!
This is the Dallas Prospect Live with DDP. Every legend was once a prospect. The Dallas Prospect is funded by viewers like you through Patreon and PayPal. To support the show, visit patreon.com/the Dallas Prospect or become a member by clicking the join button. Now let the show begin.